host of the Gridiron.
So this here, a decade of despair. How we got here? Yeah, it's. The last just the 10 years has just been like just a total, like just absolute dumpster fire. I mean, it just been on this poor guy right here. I mean, of course, he's certainly not, not guilty, right? He certainly has. Mr. Mara certainly has his share. He has his hand in the cookie jar as far as with how bad the Giants have been past. I mean, we can go on and on and on for hours, I'm sure, talking about this. But says this is a nice article from the NorthJersey.com. Inside the Giants' decade of despair, how they got here, and this regime's fight to survive. Giants were stumbling through another losing season back in 1978 when they had to endure the embarrassment of the play that would live in franchise infamy. Miracle of the Meadowlands. Indeed, the miracle of the Meadowlands happened. And miracle of Meadowlands do happen. That was the breaking point for a group of nearly 100 Giant fans that dubbed themselves the Giants Fans Committee, and they were determined to make a statement. 3 weeks after the Pisarcik fumble, those 95 members of the Giants Fans Committee gathered inside a banquet room at the Ramada Inn in Clifton, New Jersey, a meeting place inside a hotel in the shadow of the Meadowlands. A fee of $3 each paid for the room rental, as well as coffee, orange juice, and pastries. Oh, sounds nice. It was there that the committee also took up a collection to pay for a small plane to carry over a banner over the old Giant Stadium at the game later that day. The message in the third quarter of an eventual win over the Cardinals read, 15 years of lousy football, we've had enough. In the aftermath, the Giants were coerced by the league to hire George Young as general manager. They eventually promoted defensive coordinator, obviously, Bill Parcells. Both were enshrined in Canton as members of the Hall of Fame. So how did these Giants get anywhere close to those times of despair from the 70s once again? To appreciate how far the Giants have fallen, let's press the rewind button and trace the organizational missteps with ownership, yet again facing questions about starting over and whether general managers Shane and Dable deserve a fourth year. Giants are 2-10. Oh, my God. You have to go back to when this current slide began during the 2015 season to truly get the complete picture, as the Giants have suffered through 8 campaigns of double-digit losses since. Tom Coughlin knew his defense was going to have its personnel problems that year, even with Steve Spagnuolo back as defensive coordinator, so he would have to compensate with decisions on offense, quite frankly, that were out of character. So, I mean, the one thing is that Reese went out and like he was at Gurley World and just spent a bunch of money. So after Coughlin exited, Reese still remained as general manager, brought in Ben McAdoo. But the defense was no longer going to be the albatross it was the year before, thanks to a $200 million splurge. Olivier Vernon, Snacks Harrison, Janoris Jenkins, and Keenan Robinson. The free agent additions were significant upgrades and changed the look of a defense that led the way in McAdoo's first year to an 11-5 record and a playoff berth. There were signs at the end of the things, not as promising as they may have appeared when everything came crashing down in Green Bay, the infamous boat trip, right? And we got blown out in the playoffs. Maybe we should have been seeing what happened next. Ben McAdoo and the crumbling Giants locker room. Long before Mara issued his playful yet prophetic from Bono to Bozo warning on Dable about how things can change quickly for coaches and teams, especially in the Big Apple, there was the what happened with McAdoo. Year 2 began with McAdoo. Now the slick back, Rico Suave looking McAdoo, right? Shared a Rudyard Kipling poem and a fable about Frazier the Lion in team meeting and training camp. And things just got stranger as the year progressed. The defense that led the playoff run the year before started splintering quickly. Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie and Landon Collins had their issues with Eli Apple, who sucked. DRC was suspended for a week when he left the facility during practice. Apple and Jackrabbit did not return from the bye week on time, and in trying to protect the team, McAdoo twisted the truth publicly on several occasions. Then, of course, came the coup de grace with the bungled benching of Eli Manning. Then we brought Pat Shurmur in. Pat Shurmur was given a job to succeed McAdoo for two big reasons. He was supposed to be a calming influence as opposed to McAdoo, with a locker room that finished the 2017 season engulfed in chaos. The adult in the room is how Gettleman described Shurmur. He viewed his opportunity with Big Blue as a second chance after failing as a head coach in Cleveland. And he had the same exact record in Cleveland as he did with the Giants. So he's a good offensive coordinator. He's just not a good head coach. There was also the influence Shurmur would ultimately have in picking the next quarterback after one season with Manning back as a starter. Shurmur and Mara were enamored with Josh Allen. Others in the front office had good things to say of Sam Darnold. But ultimately, Gettleman convinced all involved that the best player in the draft was running back from Penn State, and they could get another year out of Manning, and Saquon Barkley would be their golden ticket to an offensive resurgence. So, and of course, then the Giants had been eyeing Justin Herbert since 2018, but when he went back to Oregon the following year, they pivoted. Gettleman shipped Odell Beckham Jr. to the Browns, heading into Shurmur's second season, angering a generation of fans who only positive Giants memories were attached to their accomplishments of number 13. Barkley became the face of the franchise. Gettleman fell in love with Daniel Jones at the Senior Bowl, and that was that. Shurmur believed in Jones, too, and seemed poised to be one to guide him as they moved forward together. But after finishing 4-12, the Giants fired Shurmur and kept Gettleman, setting themselves up for another heartache and disappointment. So then they bring in Joe Judge and the Great Divide. Judge was hired to be the CEO head coach, someone who could dip into every facet of the game while delegating responsibilities. That started out as a novel concept that could work, but everything that followed offered unforeseen and nearly impossible to overcome challenges, especially for a first-time head coach at any level. Of course, there was a COVID-19 pandemic with ramifications. For example, Judge's two teams never had an indoor weight room, and the players never met with their position coaches in position meeting rooms. By year two, the Giants' expectations were higher than they should have been, coming off a 6-win season. But the thing was, with Judge, right, his first season, they started 1-7. They finished 6-10, and somehow with that division, they almost went to the playoffs. But they finished the 29th, Judge's first season, right, with what was it? They were 5-3. They went from 1-7 to 6-10, but they finished 5-3. So the last 8 games of the season, they were 5-3. So, yeah, so it was kind of like, there may be a little bit of room for optimism going into Judge's second season, but they also beat Dallas on the final day of the regular season and had a chance at winning the division title. But then, of course, that's when the Eagles tanked because they're worthless pieces of human trash, and they gave Washington the division title because they tanked. But the Giants wound up with a better draft choice, so it is what it is. Of course, obviously, Judge, that was an absolute, Judge let his disgust and frustration with Gettleman affect how he coached the team. He believed that by exposing the mistakes Gettleman made, and very publicly with the backup quarterback spot, that ownership would see it his way. Outside of the organization, Gettleman was no longer diligent in scouting players, becoming more obvious which way this was headed. It was as if he was going through the motions, and Judge set out on a path believing he had to do it all, or at least try, and nothing went right. The Giants had a GM with no regard for anything but his opinions. and a head coach who had so much conviction in how he did the job, he ran victory formation from his own goal line to prove a point about the GM, their non-existent relationship, and the quarterbacks he forced him to play with. And when Judge became a punchline league-wide, it made it impossible to keep him as head coach. Whoops. Yeah, so of course, him and head coach, they got rid of Gettleman. Gettleman retired, or however it wound up going. The Giants are 50-92-1 since Coughlin's departure following the 2015 season. They have hired and fired 3 head coaches in his wake: McAdoo, Shermer, and Judge, with an interim tag for Spagnuolo for 4 games, who wound up being 1-3. Giants have put themselves in this position, and that started well before Dable and Shane got here. They inherited one of the most challenging jobs in the NFL at the time. Suggesting otherwise is being just crazy. Shane and Dable have made mistakes. They came here as a first-time GM and head coach duo, but by most accounts were at the top of the market with plenty of suitors. They were in lockstep after building a foundation that was sustaining success, and there's plenty of reason to believe that they still are. Dable went out and squeezed every ounce of what many expected to be a 4-win team in 2022, completely altering Shane's plans for that offseason, when we all know they had their sights set on one of the quarterbacks. But it is what it is. Too much attention was paid to the need in Shane's first 2 drafts as he set out to establish his own personnel and scouting departments, and the results have been hit and miss. A foundation that needed to be rebuilt still has areas to address in order for this team to turn the corner. Another strong offseason in combination with the continued development of younger players on the roster and those close games that are being lost might be swung in their favor. It's a leap of faith yet again for ownership, and while Mara offered a vote of confidence last month, these last 5 games could paint a different picture of how this is all looked up. Have Shane and Dable shown some semblance of competence, and a plan, any willingness to work together? Yes, and with the perspective of where the Giants were in 2021 after where they were in 2019, 17, and in 15, the thought of giving this regime the length of a standard 4-year rookie contract is not too much to ask. They might be the only way to prevent the Giants' regrettably history over the past decade from repeating itself once again. So, just, a lot of, that just, it's just a lot. You can go over each season and all of that, but it's just one of the biggest things is that, we're going back is that, now we're on our 3rd GM, right? We had Reese, he's gone. And we had Gettleman, right? He's gone. Obviously now we got Shane, and then the coaches, so one of the biggest things, the biggest problems is constant turnover. One of the things is that you can see a little bit on the good side, right? We're saying the first couple of years, you can start looking at Shane's 2022 and 2023 draft class, and it's kind of like, okay, all right. But you look at this year's one, right? Things are starting to swing on the way up. Now, can he duplicate that again next year, right? If he can duplicate that again next year, especially if we get a compensatory pick, might get a 4th round, we might have 2 4th rounders, a 3rd, a 2nd, a 1st. We can get our quarterback, and we get a few other guys, another 3 or 4 guys that we can plug in there, maybe be starters or big-time contributors, right? And then you go out in free agency and bring in 1 or 2 guys because we'll have some money to spend. We can certainly add 4 or 5 6 good players to this roster, starters. So we'll have to wait and see. But it would be so nice if one of these, if something would go right for the New York Football Giants. It seems like we're just like Groundhog's Day with Bill Murray. It's just like it's like over and over and over. It's like just bad news over and over and over. But
Bye.